What up, Bone Ponies? It's Tabletop Totality. I'm Cody, and I'm here with my friends.
Neil.
And Steve.
We are the three-piece tendy, but
Hmm.
we're the two-time gold winners for Extra Life.
Hell yeah.
I thought we were talking about
Thank you.
our Olympic gold medalist wins in the Winter Olympics that we've been very
Oh, I was trying to
strongly.
keep that on the DL.
Oh,
Yeah.
snap. Okay.
Yeah,
Don't
That's
listen to
supposed to hear
anything
about
I say.
that. That's
I don't. I just don't want that much fame.
I really talk
You know?
gibberish half the time, so
Yeah, it's about modesty,
yeah.
really.
Yeah.
So, today we are talking about factions and guilds in your TTRPG.
Mm.
Um, what do you guys? You have ideas what you want to say about faction guilds? I have some notes. I took notes for once.
for once.
Well, congratulations. How
Yeah.
many pros are in your notes?
No
You
pros.
sure? I don't
Yeah,
believe that.
no, I wrote in the Cody shorthand.
So
Yeah,
only pros.
only pros.
Yeah.
Yes, Pages of War.
Yeah.
I don't know how many pros is grammatically correct, but I'll let it slide for now.
Well, that's
He
why it's
gets to
Cody
ask how many
shorthand.
pros, man.
Yeah,
He gets to ask how many pros.
that's it.
Fair enough. Neil's special.
So,
It's fine.
I do.
factions, guilds in your TTRPG.
Mhm.
What do you guys think?
I think I'm pro. I think you
Mhm.
have them in there. I think you make sure to have that aspect. If you're unsure if your table will appreciate that aspect, just sprinkle it in there. If they like it, boom. Now you can really make that a stable. If they don't, you still got them. If somebody has a wild hair, you have it prepared in your campaign, in your world setting. If it's a homebrew, even having them. A lot of the times we use them as starting points for a lot of pre-made adventures that we play. Oh, everybody's a part of this guild. This is how you all know each other. You're now being pushed onto this mission. So I think they're very versatile, very beneficial.
Yeah. I mean, they give your player character a lot of benefits. They grant a lot of a lot of things that they wouldn't normally get. And they're a cool thing to have in the world. They sort of flesh it out a little bit. Show you what the people of certain regions deem as important enough to band together to form organizations around. And it's cool for like the overlord to come up with them, and it's also something that I feel like players could also have a hand in helping develop. Like if there's a guild or something that they want to be a part of, or if there's a guild that they hear about that the overlord has created that they think sounds interesting, that they maybe want to be associated with or something, or they made up one that they want included in the story, like they could work with their overlord to sort of make that happen and sort of help develop that organization further than what the overlord might have already had planned. So that could be another aspect of utilizing guilds in your game.
Right on. So I came up with a few things I wanted to talk about for factions and guilds.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that they can be a good way to move the story along.
Mm-hmm.
Like if
Yeah.
you are maybe struggling like to make the players get interested in something that's going on, like it could be like a stepping stool into like the politics of your world. And it could be done on a small scale. It could be a local thieves guild is causing trouble, or in one of
Or you
our
want to join a local thieves guild.
Yeah,
sure
right.
sure but I think it's a good way of like maybe introducing that to to your players like in your story.
Mm-hmm.
I was also thinking that they are a good way for you to provide quests and rewards
Mm-hmm.
that maybe don't pertain to your story as well.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
absolutely.
Like you could have like we have like the Hall of Heroes in our Thistledown book, and they pay people a bounty for like any monsters that they destroy
Yep.
in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an easy way. Like if you don't want to get involved in like a very big story, or you guys want to take a break, you just want to do something easy, you can do that.
Yep.
Hmm.
Well, and we even another aspect what we do with that in Thistledown is there's a mission quest through them and everything like that. Well, once you complete it, now your whole party is considered a part of the guild. So now they have a guild shop where they have certain items that influx in and out. They can get items at a reduced rate. It makes it something beneficial because now, hey, we did this work. Yeah, we got paid for it. But also it's a little bit more because now we're a part of the guild.
Yeah.
We're at least at a a starting rank, whatever they however they affiliate with you with the guild. You're at a starting rank. Could you we've now done X amount of missions, we've earned, you could do a whole guild ranking or faction ranking quest where now you go to the next town. Oh yeah, I'm actually this rank for the guild. Oh great, we have this and accommodations, you don't have to pay for anything, yada yada yada. So now you already have a base of operations if you make your guilds kind of like worldwide, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and I think that's very helpful. I think it makes it easy for if the party has to go to a new town, they can easily get rumors of that area, easily find out what's happening in the town just from being a part of a guild. So it makes it, I think, easier that way instead of having that aspect of, well, now the party has to go about find out information. They can at least get their feet wet with the problems of the town because they're already affiliated with the guild.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it also sort of like being part of the guilds also can like grant you like access to information
Mm-hmm.
that you wouldn't normally have, or access to people that you wouldn't normally have. Like Thistledown, when it gets released, there's like 6 or 7 different factions that make up the city, and they all serve a different function.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, based on what guilds your party is associated with, or even what guilds your individual party members are associated with, you might get access to certain places that you wouldn't normally have access to because you befriended a certain guild, or you might have access to the Porkenthrop Institute's research documentation for different kinds of magical
Yep.
effects and things like that because you did something for them and you wouldn't normally have access to that, but because you helped them out with something, now you have access to their library or some device for the Maggleberry Institute or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like there's all kinds of things that you could get. You could get
yeah,
items, you could get information, you could get access. There's all kinds of ways that you could use factions and guilds to help flesh out your world and grant bonuses to players based on what they do in the world.
Yeah.
yeah. I was thinking, Neil, you touched on a couple things. You said that it provides like a base of operations. It could provide like a sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a different part of your world, like maybe the players have traveled very far to a new city and they're down and out, something bad
Mm-hmm.
happens, they lose their money, they could still maybe, go to the temple of their god, or go to, the thieves guild, follow the thieves can't signs. It
Yep.
leads you to the local thieves guild and, get somewhere to hide out for the night. um, I think it's also a good way to maybe introduce like leadership and followers
Mm-hmm.
as
Yeah.
Yeah.
well. It's a good reason, like it's a good reason to have them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like you guys built a keep in Toleraxia, and that investing that money, you essentially raised an army
Yeah.
and have settled this city, this abandoned city.
Yeah.
And that's what your faction, that's the height of your faction right now, where it's becoming almost like a city state,
Yeah.
um
Yep.
but
But that's
uh
expensive.
yeah,
Not
that was
not all the
expensive,
time you
but
get to do something like that, and I feel like kind of
Right.
where you might be going here is a guild is that that cheaper option, right? You make your name in a guild. Well, now you're going to get followers of that guild. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, look at those guys over there. They've completed X amount of missions, done this. Oh,
Yes,
I'll
yes,
follow you guys on whatever quest you're going on. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, and I think that's a good way for like if you wanted to as the overlord, if you wanted to introduce like followers, like a follower
Yep.
NPC, or like I said leadership before, like it was in like 3 and 3.5.
Yeah. No.
You had to have you basically had to have a certain amount of acclaim,
Mm-hmm.
and renown to who you were in order to have people that wanted to follow you and be a part of your adventure.
Yep.
Mhm.
Um, what else? I think I had something else I wanted to say. Oh, but yeah, with the you had mentioned about helping like with the Porkenthrop Academy
Mm-hmm.
and being allowed to go, and use their research and like
Yeah.
talk to the wizards that work there, where your average citizen doesn't get to do that.
Right.
Your average
Exactly.
traveler doesn't get to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's a I guess a non-monetary, non-item reward.
Yeah.
And I think that guilds and factions should provide some sort of perk to
Yes.
being a part of them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In Talaraxio, I have this like major city of the dwarves, and there's the basically like the greatest library in the world is in this place,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called the Arcanum, and it's renowned, but it's also like sacred and on lockdown by the dwarves.
Yep.
And you guys did some missions where you actually rescued researchers from the Underdark that worked at the Arcanum, and now you guys were allowed to go in there and you can use it, and you guys have used it multiple times.
Oh yeah, it's been a great resource to have, and I think like that's one of the best things about it, guilds or factions is you're a group of adventurers, right? You don't have this, you haven't built up this pool of resource of information, capabilities to look at these things, do the research on these things, the experience on how to conduct the research. That's the beauty of a guild, right? If you befriend a guild or you become a part of a guild or befriend a faction, things along that lines, they should be more of a solid structure, right? In the sense of they're gonna have set up supply lines, they're gonna have set up avenues to conduct whatever guild they are part of. It's like, if it's a warriors guild, they're going to know how to get equipment. They're going to know what's kind of military wise moving around the area. They're going to know your biggest threats. If it's a mages guild, they're going to be able to conduct research on things. It should be easier for them than the party. And I think that's one of like the benefits of it. You know what I mean? If you're a party and you're trying to do everything on your own, it's going to take forever. You're not going to be able to really do what these major establishments are, half the time now they're doing in the world. That's their whole
Well,
purpose.
yeah,
Yeah.
wouldn't it make sense if you were gonna play like an alchemist type character that you would want to befriend like somebody who has like a potion shop
Yeah.
or has like access to those sort of things? And I mean,
Oh,
even
absolutely.
even like a faction could be something like that. Like, we have a faction called the Sorbacks that's kind of just like your rural type citizen,
Mm-hmm.
and they mostly are a lot of the people that live and work on the farms that supply our city of Thistledown with food. um, and they have kind of made their own guild called the Sorbacks. Well, if you were to befriend them and you were able to do some quests for them, you would be able to, you have access to all sorts of things that come like with that guild. You could go to a blacksmith now. You
Yep.
could go to, you could go to the farm if you needed to. You could even get a farm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so those are also incentives slash rewards that you can do um, with your guild or with your faction, and it doesn't have to just be like, oh, we just gave you a bunch of money.
Exactly. It's
But
not
on
a
the
one
reverse of
time.
that,
It's not like a one time payment. You know what I mean?
right?
Yeah.
On the reverse of that, you could also do it in a way sort of like Skyrim, sort of like I just watched this anime Grimgar
Mm-hmm.
something, and essentially the characters in that were all had to join guilds to get like a class, like a D&D class.
Yeah.
And every time they got money from defeating enemies, they took it to go and learn new skills. And it
Yeah.
gave them like new like sword maneuvers or whatever. And so you could have something like that as well, where it could be an incentive for your players, like, oh, I want to go and earn something so that I can go and get something outside of like my normal
Yep.
benefit tree from, say, my class.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's just the world's your oyster when you start adding in more and more things. And one of the things
Mm-hmm.
that's going to flush out your world is guilds and factions, because a you can use it as catalysts for any adventure, i.e., you could have guilds that are, you know, at war with each other in a way. It could be a small feud war or something like that. Or one guild's mission statement is different than another guild's. We play with this a lot in Thistledown, and it's kind of, you know, in all of the chaos that's happening there, it's what's above all of that. So there's lower end turmoil, but you don't see it right away because, well, this guild's trying to do this, which is making this guild angry because they just want to do this. And you got the common people who are kind of done with it all because they're, they get the short end of the stick, so they're all sticking together over there and not trusting anybody. Yeah, and it just makes it more interesting. And now if you're a player that's coming in there, oh man, I go side with these people. I can find out what's going on over here. What's this Fey incursion? Things like that. It's very easy to bring in when you have a group, a big group of people that follow
Yeah.
that guild. You know what I
And
mean?
and I mean, it also fleshes out your world in that it gives it sort of like a structure. Like
Yeah.
it sort of like showcases like I was saying, like this is what's important to people. This is a cause that people can rally behind, or things like that. Factions can form up to oppose like a major evil or
Mm-hmm.
a corrupt government, or because or become a evil, a force for evil, to sort of like push against whatever forces of good exist in the world because they're bad guys.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
And
you could even have like kind of like our shields, you know,
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that like the shields faction is kind of like a religious amalgamation of different faiths, but they're
yeah,
all like tend to be like lawful deities, like good lawful deities, but they have a goal of ultimately keeping magic divine and
Yep.
hmm
not in the hands of wizards and other practitioners of arcane
yeah,
or arcana, and they do a lot of good for wherever they are.
yeah.
They help the people and they help defend people, but they also have an agenda.
Oh
you
Exactly.
yeah,
know and
absolutely.
so it's a good way for you to add like an extra level of complexity to your world.
Yeah,
And
Yes.
it's kind of like what Neil was saying about making it a little bit more lived in, a little bit more
Yep.
realistic,
yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. If you don't, there's, and that's the thing. You don't need a lot of information for a guild if your party isn't guild heavy. But even just having that little bit there, maybe they do a side quest for this guild and then they get these benefits. That goes above and beyond in the world creation. It makes it that lived in aspect. They don't need to experience it 24/7. They could just have experienced it once, and now maybe throughout their adventures they helped out this one guild, this one faction, and throughout their adventures occasionally they'll that guild or faction will come back in and be like, oh hey, I remember you guys, or oh my cousin Balin over at the forage, he told me you guys were coming through. If you need anything, let me know. I'll give you any information. It's that aspect that word's gonna travel. How does it travel in your world? This is an easy way. Guilds,
yep,
factions. Oh, yep, I was at, the town down the river. There was a group of heroes that, adventurers that stopped in, saved everybody from a goblin raid on the farms. Well, you go to the next area, those farmers are going to be happy because you took care of a threat to their other people. You know what I mean?
yep.
So it can tie in real easy. There's not much legwork, as you know, you the overlord, to put in to make it flushed out.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's it. You don't have to think of every aspect.
Yeah.
You don't have to plan out everybody's machinations and like what everybody wants and oh, there's 100 people in this guild and I need to know what every single one of them does and
Mm-hmm.
thinks.
No.
That is not necessary. You can introduce a faction, you can introduce a guild. Let's say this town is run by a really strict hierarchy of nobles, and the players get there and immediately they're just on opposite sides of these bad nobles, and they kind of end up going and finding like the local rebellion,
Mm-hmm.
like the local resistance. So that's not an excess of guilds and factions. It's just two sides.
That's it.
But
Yeah.
your players can be introduced in that to be the catalyst. They can make something happen. They can ignore it.
They could be a
And
mediator between the two. You know what I mean?
right. And I think the point of what I was trying to say is that you don't have to do everything. You have to figure it all out because it's gonna depend on how involved the players want to be.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You
That's
know?
that's the biggest factor. That's the biggest crux of an overlord in general, you know, is you if sometimes I'm sure we've all experienced it, you plan for your players to go in one avenue and they do a quick button hook and somehow they're all the way over here that nobody was ever talking about doing, you know, and I know people have experienced that with guilds and factions, and I think that's what turns off a lot of people from going down that route. Don't start with it all flushed out. Just give them a couple little. Oh, yep. There's this potion guild that's here that controls all of the potion making in this town. They're if you're gonna do anything, you got to go through them for it. You know, I think Waterdeep does a great job of that in that pre-made adventure. They explain that all and they break it down. Yeah, if you're going to do this service, you got to go to this group of people. All, you know, it could be several different shops,
Yeah,
and
we
none of
did
the
that.
shops are the same, but all of
Right.
those shopkeepers pay into the same guild.
Right.
And, you know, we found that out when we made our own inn. You know, we did our own tavern.
Yeah, and if we wanted to sell booze there, we had to go and like get a permit from somebody, and then we had to
Yep.
go and like befriend like the Brewers Guild and like pay to be a part of them so that we could get, you know. I
Exactly.
think we ended up having a shade. We had moonshine
So,
essentially.
well, we did
We had mooch.
we did it we did it the proper way to get the ticket, like every good, you know, bar needs to do. But then you need to have your special recipes that aren't just out there for everybody to sell, and
You can't
you got to go
right.
to
You
your
can't get this at the
halflings who are
store.
brewing in their basement that
Right.
also have a tunnel connected to the sewers. It's you're gonna
Right.
get your best
Right.
barrels from that halfling, and they're doing it illegally. They're not a part of the guild, you know.
In a way, they're
Yeah.
their own guild.
Yeah, well,
Well, they're
we
just not
immediately we included
recognized.
them into our greater gang.
Yeah,
As,
yeah, yeah. When you have a bunch of people coming up through your sewage hole, um, you get a little nervous, and then when they start asking about your illegal brewing, you get even more nervous.
I am someone who has lots of years of plumbing experience, as you well know, Neil.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Anytime you have people coming up through your sewer hole,
It's not a good time.
that's a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
That's a big
There's an
problem.
issue there. You might need to get a snake.
Yeah, you need to call somebody.
Yeah.
You know.
But I think it just greatly elevates even at a simple task. You know, again, you don't need to do much. You just they could conduct one mission for them, and now, hey, if you want to run missions, you know, we have that Hall of Heroes guild that's trying to become pretty much the greater City Watch, you know, because they feel like the City Watch isn't doing their job. They're gonna ask you. They might just send you on patrols. You know, their side missions might be, you know, all right, your player's now out for 5 hours because they picked up a patrol for the Hall of Heroes. Now they're out patrolling. Yeah, they're gonna make money for that, but that's something you can do in downtime. We've
Yeah.
talked about downtime tons of times. Well, guilds help that. You know.
Well, and to tag on to that, I think it's a great way to introduce like maybe the player wants to learn how to craft something and they just you
Yep.
can't just like one of the things we talk about is kind of silly in D&D. Don't get me wrong, I love D&D, but when you level up, you just automatically know all new stuff,
Boom.
right? Like
Done.
yeah. And I feel like yeah, okay, it's a fantasy game, like not to be like totally nitpicky, but you could add an element into your game where if people wanted to learn things outside of their what they were given for their background or their class, they
Mm-hmm.
could go and learn to be like, hey, I want to learn how to use nunchucks,
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go and I'm going to join this guild and I'm going to learn, over a period of time. And then you, as the overlord, could grant that player their proficiency,
Exactly.
Mhm.
you
Yeah, I
know?
think I think that is a great tidbit you mentioned on, for depending on your system. So for Dungeons and Dragons, it's great to do things that aren't class relevant. You can't really get from your class. Well, this is where you get a trainer at a guild, or well, this guild you're gonna have to do a couple missions before they'll even induct you as a trainee to then be trained into proficiency. And I think it allows, you to do a little bit more than what the base system allows. But you could do that in any tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
There's an avenue of, making it maybe a little bit more realistic. Some would say, just adding a smidge of realism, just a little drop, a little drop, goes a long way in the pool of fantasy.
Mhm.
Because you're now adding in new avenues for players to go down, new creation methods for how they want their character to be, and adding those without really changing the core mechanics is go do it, man. It's a great idea. You're again, it's not making a lot of work for you. It's just another way for now your characters to reach the goal that they may want. Your players to create that
Yeah. And
character in a grander way.
right. And you're always going to have the situation, and I think Neil touched on it before, but you're always going to have the situation where you're like, oh, I created this like crazy arena and I
Yeah.
have this like whole bracket of monsters and like, the players can go in there and they can fight and they can earn money and they can do all this stuff. And you present it, and then the players have no interest in doing it at that time.
Yeah.
And it's like you poured all that effort into it where I think I say this a lot. I think it's fair to maybe not plan everything out
Yeah.
because you also want to take the input from your players.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how we make it collaborative.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. And
And,
even if the arena thing isn't something that the players are interested in, like the guild doesn't just have to be about the arena. The guild could it's the fighters guild, so they have experts in different kinds of weapons and fighting styles and things.
Yep.
So, even if the arena isn't what pulls
yeah,
their players in, then maybe they want to train in the art of fighting in a different style, which goes back to
yeah,
what Cody was saying of like you can still use that guild or that faction to
Mm-hmm.
to they're not just going to be a one trick pony. They're going to have more than one thing going on. So
Oh
having
yeah.
that be an aspect of that guild is something to think about as well.
Yeah.
yeah. And I think probably the last thing I would say is that it doesn't have to be, uh, it does not have to be a huge thing. It could be you're a group of vampire hunters. There's 5 of you and you meet at a certain time to like go out and hunt vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm.
that's what your characters do. Or that's what your guild does. And it could be small or it could be huge. It could be massive.
Yep.
Yeah,
It could span continents,
Yep.
yeah,
you know? But it doesn't necessarily have to be like it can be institutions, it can be fixtures, like I said
Correct.
before, a
Yeah.
temple, a library, a
yeah.
hospital, a place of healers could be a faction
A
essentially.
Well,
school. We have two
yeah.
schools in our in
Right.
Yeah.
our in our
Right.
town that are considered guilds.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's it's a vast, almost like a blanket term for a lot of, your fantasy tabletop RPGs, your guilds and factions. We don't see it as much in at least, our, living world. You don't see that as much, but that's a union. You know what I mean? That's pretty much what they are. It's these are all teachers, but they're all a part of this greater conglomerate to protect each other.
Yeah, it's a union. It's a union, and it's also a corporation.
Corporations
are
too.
basically guilds. Like if you think about, if you like Cody was saying, like,
or a violent street gang.
Yeah,
exactly.
Organized crime.
Yeah, guilds would have to be a big part of your world, and they could be a huge part of your world, but they could also be invisible, because it could be like all of the shops in the city are all part of this one guild. You never have to interact with that guild because they're just a centralized body of all these different shops.
Yeah, just the shopkeepers.
Different people who came together as shopkeepers to be like, we got to get together to talk about like the property taxes of our businesses,
or to
whatever it is,
keep prices even. You know what I mean? Like, so they could all make money out of it.
Yeah, or dealing with trade in and out of the city. Like, it doesn't have to be anything that your characters have to be a part of, but that guild can still exist and be mentioned, but it doesn't have to be anything that the players necessarily have to be a part of. It's just a way to help flesh out your world a little bit more and make everything a little bit more connected.
Yeah, and take care, I think, too, like, you can present these as ideas. You can present them as concepts of, okay, in this village, everything, like, all the shops have to, they meet, they have an official that meets with the king on their behalf. He's the minister of coin or whatever. Like, I totally lost what I was going to say.
Oh, I think keep it simple. Like, you don't have to plan out. It's one of those things. You don't have to plan out everybody who's a part of the guild.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you really don't. Sometimes us as overlords, we get lost in trying to make sure everything's so detail oriented. So if somebody asks a question, we're not scrambling. Man, embrace the chaos. Embrace that aspect. But all right, I have the one person who's in charge of all the guild stuff. This person, no matter what, everything has to go through that person to either become affiliated. Boom. That's all I need to know. I can think up on the spot of somebody who they run into, who then gives them the information for this person instead of them, just going straight to that person. It's very easy at that point. But I know at the end of the day, it's this person who's in charge of it all, or you have a guild or a faction leader. That's the person, that's the only one you really need ironed out. You don't need everybody else so ironed out.
Like, for one thing I did was for our friend Sean, who's been on our show before and our different adventures that we play live, or just life adventures, I suppose.
Yeah, he's definitely a part of life adventures as well.
Yeah, he's in our party for sure.
Yeah, he's on the boat.
Yeah, what's up, Sean? Well, you're on the boat. He has, he's been a part of your guild.
Yeah,
he's like a founding member of the Free Folk Federation in Talaraxia, but he's also a part of the Ga'Akir, which is a thieves guild in that city of dwarfs I mentioned. He's also a part of the Black Code, which is another big thieves organization in another town, and I think he's like the only person, well, probably other than Oris with Chris, because Chris has an order that he's a part of.
Yeah.
But basically what I was saying is that, he's the one that has been involved in it. He's the one that's been interested in it. So that has propelled his storyline, and it's also taken my involvement where I've had to be more involved.
Yeah.
I've had to flesh things out to develop that story with him.
Yeah.
As opposed to making it all and then being like presenting it to your players, and then they could potentially not care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just not be interested.
Yeah.
No.
So
you don't have to you don't have to go crazy on it.
Yep.
It could just be a concept, and if somebody takes it, you're gonna know they're gonna be interested. Then you can go with it.
Exactly. That's the time. That's the time to, put all that effort in.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, I think we hit a lot of great points. You know, all you need to know, this 3-piece Dendy, pro guild, pro factions. But make it, don't go all the way until you know.
Yeah, don't go
All
all. Yeah,
right.
no reason to go all in until until you know that your players are aware and
Hey,
are interested, and then if they are, then
give
go
it to
nuts
them.
with it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
and and I think this just all goes back to how we say like session zero is very important, but also having that open communication, between the overlord and the players is very
Yeah,
important.
throughout
Just so
play.
that Right, just so that you
Yeah,
know what it is that you're going to get into. Like, if you have a bunch of people at your table that really don't want to play through this like guild war that you have planned, like don't waste your time, don't waste their time.
yeah,
Like maybe that's a story that you can write or it's a campaign for a different day.
yeah. For a
Hmm.
different group of people, you know
Right.
what I mean. Don't
Yeah.
scrap it. Write it down in your idea notebook. Let it marinate a little bit. Get the right
You can't
people.
you can't go wrong with
Boom.
meditation, man.
No,
You
you
just
can't.
you can't.
Every good bone pony knows that.
Take your campaign and just cook it in its own juices
That
until you just have adventures and fun and friendship forever.
That's
There you
it,
go.
man. There's the secret right there. Um, but no, I think that pretty much wraps up our conversation on guilds and factions in your tabletop RPG. Make sure to hop on down to the corral below and check out all of our other content, such as our live plays for Extra Life that we do every month, our adventures that we post up on our Drive Through RPG page, which we usually try and put a new one out every month or so. So keep an eye out for that. On top of that, we do have a Patreon as well that we usually have some posts on there, either exclusive creatures, monsters, items. Technically, all of our adventures get put up there. If you're in the right category for our Patreon, you'll get those as well without even having to buy them separately. And then on top of that, we have some of our how do I want to put it? Our hidden knowledge gets put there, and that's might be where we pull for our playtesting for our system that we're working on. So you could even help in adding your 2 cents into get it 2 cents because you're going on to Patreon, into our
Give us more
into
than
our
2 cents,
creation
please.
process. Yeah, we prefer more than 2 cents. But
Well,
we're
come
not
on, guys. Inflation.
we're
Inflation.
we're not gonna knock the 2 cents either. So
Mm-hmm.
No, because every penny counts.
There you go.
But yeah, I think that wraps it up for us here. Thanks for strolling on into this
This table.
episode. Yeah, this episode of the podcast.
Yeah. Good having you.
Yeah. Two-time gold medalist champions.
Two-time, three-piece tendy, gold medalists. Thank you so much for all your
Yeah.
help for Extra Life.
Yes.
We're going to keep
Yes.
fundraising every month.
We gotta
Yep.
get
Thank
that.
you.
We
Gotta
sure
get that
are.
third one.
I get
That's
one
right.
for each. One for each
That's
10,
right.
baby.
That's
That's
it.
right.
That's it. All
We're
right,
going to be like the
folks.
Chicago Bulls.
Oof. Gosh.
That's right, baby.
That's a lot of pressure now. I'm feeling it.
Dynasty.
Dynasty. Yeah. I'm in. You got me there. All right, though, folks. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Get ran.